First up, you're calling from a 210 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good afternoon, Sam. John from San Antonio.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good. Many of your listeners know I was a strong supporter of Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign and called in more than anybody to talk about his electoral chances and promoting his agenda. When you asked me to be on your election night coverage, I requested to do a piece on our revolution candidates, and you agreed. But I also criticized Bernie because I felt that his funding mechanism to promote Medicare for All was too low in his Our Revolution book and on his website. I was very happy to see that there was more revenue called for, not only in the amount that was paid by each employee, but also paid by each employer in his 6-page white paper. But the main idea that I was put in the white paper that there was a lot of funding would come from taxing the rich to pay for everyone's health care. This benefits almost everybody and also tackles one of the great drivers of income inequality, which is tax phobia. So the tax burden put on both individuals and employers is lower in each participant on Bernie's plan, and in my own numbers, it's also lower. So if you look at the average paid by individuals, here's what it says in his white paper. Last year, the typical working family paid an average of $5,277 in premiums to private health care companies. Under this option, the typical family of four earning $50,000 after taking the standard deduction would pay a 4% income-based premium to fund Medicare for All, just $844 a year, making that family over saving the family over $4,400 a year. Because of the standard deduction, families of four making less than $29,000 a year would not pay this premium. And the employee base in 2016, employers paid an average of $12,865 in average health care premiums for worker for a family of four who makes $50,000 a year. Under this option, employers would pay an average of 7.5% for payroll tax to help finance Medicare for All, just $3,750, a savings of more than $9,000 a year for that employee. So I was just really happy about this, and I just want to hear your take on this about the plan, but also I want to know the fact that so much of this plan was talking, based on the taxing of the rich. How much of a shot is that actually going to be able to pass? Let's say come 2021, or can we fund this just like on a state level? We're talking about, like California legislation was talking about 15% tax in an individual, and it just seems like what he's talking about, taxing the rich, is really what the public would respond to, as opposed to like a 15% tax, straight tax on each individual, or 15%, split up between employer and employee.
I mean, look, I think there's a lot of evidence that you can explain this concept to people. The difficulty, I think, the taxation part of it is actually not the hardest part of the sell, to be honest with you. I think the hardest part of the sell to the public, right? I mean, there are a lot of interests involved here that would fight against this, okay? From the insurance companies to the providers, to hospitals, there's a lot of players, and particularly on the donor side too, who are going to fight against this. But in terms of like the general population, I think the taxation, you can sell that. I think there is like a broad understanding amongst people that like, I'm willing to pay more taxes if everybody is, and they certainly would be amenable to it if they felt that wealthy people were paying an even greater share of taxes. That has been the norm frankly, during the most successful economic periods we've had in this country. But I think part of what's going to scare people, and I'm not saying this is a rational response, but I think the hardest part is going to be this fear of because there's a lot of people. I mean, if you look at the polling, most people are fairly satisfied with their health insurance, and to the extent that there's any dissatisfaction, it's with cost. And part of that is because I think they didn't realize before, and this is even before the Affordable Care Act, I think most people aren't in a position to use their health insurance in a way where it exposes the failure of the insurance to work. Because we know, 20% of or 80% of healthcare costs are borne by 20% of the people. There's something like 5% of the people actually bear 50% of the costs. And so part of, I think, the difficulty in selling it is going to be saying to people who perceive themselves as possible patients that, look, things aren't really going to change for you in terms of your doctor, where you get your coverage. I mean, most doctors are going to have to opt into Medicare. What's going to happen is that your doctor, when you go see your doctor is going to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to see you because I might not go on Medicare. I mean, there's going to be a lot of that going on, that it's not so much the tax stuff, I think, is a big deal. But I think people talk about the tax because it fits in with an ideological narrative. But I don't think that's going to be the hardest part for individuals. I think the hardest part for individuals is going to be this sort of wait a second, what's going to happen here? This is very mysterious. And I think that's the value of subsidiary bills and laws where you expand the number of people who are on Medicare, right? I mean, so if I had to rewrite Bernie's bill, I would say, let's make it a 6-year roll-in. Let's do the kids first. Under 18 is, everybody's on Medicare. Then let's do 50-year-olds and up. And then let's do 18-year-olds and down. And I would add, 12, 16 months in there. I don't know. I don't know why I'm saying that. Maybe it doesn't matter. But that, I think, to me is very important. The idea where people get more and more comfortable with hey, wait a second. This is my grandma used to say Medicare was great, but now my uncle's saying it too. And my nephew's on Medicare, and my niece is. They're doing great. And so, I think that's going to be the bigger challenge.
Okay, I think that Bernie's kind of high-low approach is excellent. In other words, in a scenario where he is elected in 2020, and it's not an outrageous proposal, considering that in the latest PPP poll, Bernie is up for the first time by a higher margin than Biden, up by 13, Biden up by 12, and Bernie is winning 14% of the people who voted for Trump. So this isn't outrageous, and so if we look at this, I think this argument about the taxes is that I read to you, these two paragraphs, which are actually saying that you're going to be paying less in taxes. You're going to be paying less in taxes compared to the premiums you were paying,
right,
are very effective, and also the idea that we're taxing the rich. Obviously, no Republicans are going to agree with that. But as if we can get majorities, that's going to happen. But the low approach is if we can't win this, all at once, immediately, then we'll go for a lower, kind of phase. And this is what you're talking about: the Schatz plan,
right,
the Murphy plan.
Right.
In other words, let's make things better for lower class and or working class and middle class people immediately, and then eventually, when we can get the momentum to get the big kahuna done, let's do it.
Yep.
And I think it's a great plan, so I'm just very happy with it, and I wasn't expected to be. I was kind of wondering, is this going to go over? 10% was my threshold.
It went
to 11.5.
I remember, John, all those days where you called in and you were mad because you saw what was going to happen in Vermont when they had the opportunity to go single payer. You're like, they have not told people about the taxes, and that's why. Was it Schulman who couldn't pull the trigger?
And he lost.
Couldn't pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, Shumlin.
Shumlin.
But
he lost.
Right. Well, he didn't. Yeah, he didn't actually run, but.
He didn't run for re-election. He was. But his popularity plummeted, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it went down. Yeah.
All right,
So,
John.
But all right.
Appreciate
all right.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Talk to you later.
Okay, take care.
I like.
John used to call in, and he was.
I like when he's like, "Yeah, sure, yeah." This poll
whatever,
really
Michael.
plummeted. Michael.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Go
He
back
was
to
at
the
about a 42% approval
drawing
rating.
board. Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos